We're ready to go. How's everybody doing here tonight? We got a evening's worth of Pantheon ahead of us, and that's always a good feeling. Seeing lots of you in chat already. That's great to see. Well, let me back up. If you've been paying attention to Pantheon at all this month, you know that it was quite the month. It was a bit interesting with the producer's letter that was released earlier this month. Created quite the buzz in the community, and of course that was kind of fun for me to follow. If you haven't caught up on that, it's all on YouTube, and so this is the first developer live stream that they've done since that, so it'll be kind of interesting to see if this kind of dovetails with that at all. Other than that, I really don't. So I don't really know a whole lot of what to expect. I know that this stream is going to be focused on kind of like the art pipeline. They're gonna have one of their artists on the show here tonight talking about what his job is and what they've been working on with that, which is good. Everybody loves pretty art. But other than that, I'm interested to see with the news that we got earlier this month, kind of how they address that. If like how is the way they handle these streams going to be any different? Is their tone going to be different at all? Anything like that? So I'm interested. I'm locked on, but we still got a few more minutes until we get to that, until they go live. So who do we got here tonight with us? Figure just hang out with you for a few minutes before we really get started. See who we got here tonight, because this is a party after all. We got Kellum holding down the house as always. Hello to you. KLX214, Kundalini Rising, and the Crinkled One. Erikai, good to see you as always. Can you guys hear me now? Could you not hear me before? Okay, yeah, so it was, that makes sense. So I was playing around with some audio settings when I was recording. I was recording something kind of as an experiment earlier this month, and I, for whatever reason, had changed the audio to, rather than being output through the program, it was just being fed back into my headset, which, like I said, is super disorienting. I forgot to disable that before I started the stream, so I apologize about that, but we got it all fixed now. Easy peasy. You didn't really miss much, because I could tell right away as soon as I started saying something like good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, whatever time you're watching this, whether you're watching it here live or on YouTube, wherever. As soon as I started saying that, I knew something was wrong with my audio. Jay Slewin says, didn't even know a stream was happening until you went live. Well, I'm glad you're here. You made it. You made it in time, even early even. So I like to get things started off just a little bit before they go live, just so we can kind of hang out and get acquainted. But just for you guys that don't know, they do these streams on the last Thursday of every month. This is a consistent thing that we've been doing for several months now, and it was a while ago, pretty soon after they started doing these on a consistent basis, that I realized, like, hey, I might as well hang out with my my friends on Twitch at the same time. And because I know sometimes the Pantheon Twitch chat can get a little busy, and so I feel like it's just kind of fun to have a little bit more relaxed channel here, a little bit smaller, more tight knit, so we can just kind of process things and talk about it from a different angle there. So always super glad to have you guys join me for that. Just kind of I'll take it all in together. Erikai says, how come you keep your camera so far off to the side? Look like it's a neck painy to talk looking at us while facing your computer. Not really. I think mainly it's the camera is there just because this is the most logical background, I think, for my room, because there's windows back there that are all blacked out, and then there's like a closet. It's not a very big room, and I don't know. When I watch like other Twitch streamers and stuff, I notice that a lot of them kind of have this similar setup where it's kind of off to the side. You can kind of see the PC here, and I don't know. I just kind of like that style, and it's really not that uncomfortable in my opinion. Let's see. We got a few minutes, like 3 minutes and counting. Parkeo says, hello from Brazil. We got Brazil in the house. That's awesome. BTV's going worldwide. Simo says, how do you maintain your optimism for Pantheon's development? I'm a champion game backer, but I'm starting or pretty much have write this game off as just another L. So much time has passed. You know, that's a really good question, and one that I wish I had more than 2 minutes to address, because that's a really deep question. So the bottom line, if we're talking about whether or not Pantheon will release at all, I think that's a good place to start. You know what I mean? When we're talking about Optimism, is the game going to release at all? And a lot of my optimism comes from this very deep-seated belief that I've had for a long time, because first of all, I've been following the game now for over 4 years very closely, and in that time I have noticed really it's just an intense desire on the developer's part to just see the job done, and that has just been reinforced so many times over the years to me, and it's something that I understand myself, and like I can relate to and understand that feeling that people have when there's a seemingly gigantic task that a lot of people may think is impossible, may think it's crazy, but if you have an idea in your head and you put your mind to it, there's nothing that can stop you, and you will just go to any length you have to get it done. And so because I see that in the devs, I know that it's just a matter of time, okay, that before the game gets released. I don't know when, but I do know that that time will come. And on that note, I'll touch on that more later, but on that note, we're going to switch over to their feed because they are going live. Oh my god.
And welcome to another stream for Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen. Thanks for joining us today. With me, of course, as always, is creative director Chris Joppa Perkins. Hey, Chris.
Hey, everybody.
And we have one of the Thrown Fast Guards with us today. We've got David Veronic Schlau.
Stick to the roads, Ben.
And joining us for today's show on environment art is, of course, our senior environment artist, Jimmy Torque Lane. How you doing, Jimmy?
Hey, everybody. Great. I'm happy to be here.
Good to have you, man. So to get started tonight, before we get into the bulk of what we're going to go through today, just wanted to touch base quickly. a couple of weeks ago, we put out a producer's letter, which sort of talked about the state of the game and all of that stuff, and it emphasized kind of our commitment to improve our communications with you. So on that note, just to keep you updated, we've finished the evaluation build. Now, the evaluation build was created for potential partners to check out the game. It's sort of a condensed Pantheon experience. And now what we're doing is we're focusing on refining that condensed Pantheon experience. So we're doing all of the testing internally, and our pre-alpha pledgers are also able to join in on the testing. So if you'd like a chance to check it out yourself, head on over to pantheonmmo.com/pledge and check out the VIP pledge options there. That will get you access to test the pre-alpha 5 pledge. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Chris.
Where
Chris,
are
you
all
wanna
these
introduce Jimmy
props
for
coming
us?
from?
I do. I've had the pleasure of working with Jimmy for a good little while now, and do not cease to be impressed with not only his skills as a world builder and his skills as a 3D artist, but just his skills as a communicator, and also his ability to take really abstract thinking, and which you get a lot of when you're working on something where you're essentially creating something out of nothing. And the work that he does to interface with me, to interface with Tim, our senior game designer, to interface with Justin, our lead writer, with Jared, the concept artist, the communications he has with Kyle and Rob, programming. Like, there's just such a well-rounded suite of skills and communication abilities that he has to get the information that he needs, and to make sure that we're considering everything the way we should be when we're looking at these areas to build. But one of the extraordinary things too is his understanding of pipelines and his understanding of processes and how the different technologies and tools fit into that. So I can't wait for you guys to kind of feast from what he's bringing today. He's put together a really amazing just experience to show off a lot of the work that he's done. And I know he would really enjoy getting some good questions and being able to interact, on what he does that he's so passionate about. So, Jimmy, we are very grateful and just love being able to work with you and have you a part of Visionary Realms, and excited to introduce you today. And why don't you take it and tell us what you're going to be showing us?
Thanks. Yeah, that was a lot. That was a lot of nice words to have to listen to.
I need them all.
Yeah, I'll take them. I'll take them all day. So I've prepared a video talking a little bit about some of the pipeline stuff that I've been working on since really forever. But a lot of it starts at the Coast stream last time I was with y'all. So we're going to take it up from there. And I'm just really excited for y'all to see it. So maybe roll the film.
Let's get right into it.
Hey everybody, so excited to be here today and be able to talk about the environment and what we've been up to. Today we're going to talk about the world building pipeline specifically. We're going to go through the Avenger's Pass a little bit and how that relates to that new pipeline. We're going to talk about rocks, we're going to talk about caves, and then we're going to go out with a bang. So the last time that I was here on a stream with y'all, we were showing off Oldwood and Sleepless, well, the Isle of Infinite Storms, I should say, and just going through some of the excitement there. That stream actually was a pretty important, landmark for us in that it really ended phase 1 and started phase 2 for the environment side of Project Fairtale. So what that really means is we had been given the capability to make things look cool. Like, we went through all these shaders, we went through all a bunch of lighting, we went through fog, we went through water, got through a lot of stuff to be able to make these assets, and now we need to go think about the rest of the world and really how do we get enough gameplay for all these players. It's a big world. We've been focusing for a bit, and so let's open our borders, open the horizon. So yeah, it was quite exciting. It was a big moment to look around and see the other zones and think about how we're gonna tackle this. One of the things that had been on our mind for some time has been this program called Houdini. Houdini is a program which a lot of AAA studios utilize in order to procedurally generate a lot of their world in order to create a better art directed, world. Like they build tools in so it gives you a lot and then you art direct what's left. So we really wanted to do that too. That sounds like a great idea. Like, how much can we get done with the least amount of people while still maintaining an aesthetic? And so let me first show you kind of what that means. So this is Houdini. This is their most recent software release and kind of what they can do with it. They do a lot of like particles. It can do world generation to some extent in terms of it can deal with terrain. It can deal with placing trees. It can, if you build tools, it can create and place buildings. It's amazing. They've been working towards having a better integration with Unity and Unreal for some time, and it's really getting great. And we couldn't pass it up. It's just too good of a tool, too much efficiency while maintaining fidelity. Like we gotta bite. Um, so it does all this other stuff. It's an amazing program. Everyone should learn Houdini. But I can't stay on that for too long. Let's look back at how we actually used it. So how would that work for us? We started off by thinking through what it needed. Like, what was the path to success? Well, we obviously needed something faster for terrain generation. We needed better painting, or at least the ability to paint with the procedural. We needed something that would automatically place a lot of our trees, a lot of our rocks, that we could then art direct, mostly through the painting. Um, Long-term goals would be, a building tool, a cave tool, rivers, where you just draw a spline and it does the river on top of the terrain. Bridges, sound zone placement, and post-process volume placement. These are all things that are doable. They're just, you need time to actually develop this stuff. Um, so, anyways, we started right away, and out of the box. Basically, by the way, I was working on a side project, so it wouldn't hurt the main repository. So it was just kind of a local test, is what we're talking about from here. Um, but I was able to get a lot of scattering going initially. I mean, this is like the first week or two, or like first week, I think. We were scattering things. There was the ability to understand flow, like terrain erosion, and we were able to get it into tiles. Tiles are a big deal. So, um, you know, the thing about having a continent and a world is that you can't load it all at the same time. You can only load some of it at a time if you're going to be a game. Maybe if you're a movie, you can load it all. I don't know. That's still kind of crazy. But we needed to do it in such a way that it would all the information would be nested and controlled within tiles, so that you could then also iterate on those tiles quicker. You don't have to rebake the whole world when you're changing things. You're only rebaking that tile. Makes everything so much more simple. Um, so here's some of the continued testing. You can paint on something once you can sign your name, in my opinion. We got tiles working. These tiles were able to be brought over to Unity using the Houdini engine plugin. Really great system. Totally recommend it to those who are thinking about jumping on board the Houdini train. This is great stuff. Um, but yeah, so this terrain was capable, and it was already set up in Unity as terrains, but these are still screenshots in Houdini. Um, but one of the things that was happening that was really cool is that we were starting to get a lot more control on our masks for where we're placing objects. So this, I believe it was like a grass or a shrub asset, and it's only placing itself on areas that have this amount of incline. It needs a certain amount of slope in order to place it, which is cool. Uh, One of the big things that programming really required from us in order to validate this as an option was the ability to get raw detail, raw data out of Houdini into Unity. And so one of the things is that this is data for a single tile, and it has each item with their, what's going on with all of their uh, masks, and then it also has their scale, and then it has their actual Unity like asset location as well. So you got everything you could ever want in terms of streaming these in or loading them in any like sort of quick way. Um, so we were rocking and rolling. I was going through tutorials all the time, and one of the things that kind of was really cool that was happening a lot at that time was this. Let me hide it before I don't want to give it away. Was this thing people were doing pretty regularly, and that was projecting like a skull or like a body that's laid down or something onto a terrain. So this is a terrain in Houdini. This is Houdini, and that's like some noise applied to it. And what I did is I took this scar model and I then moved him around and projected him onto the terrain. So he's now a different. It's just a projection, and then I merged them together and I did all sorts of stuff. But this sort of thinking, this is just an example. Like this sort of thinking could be applied to other simpler meshes. You don't need like the scar character model. What about if you were to just do something as simple as like a valley or like an alleyway?
It's kind of awesome. I think they should keep that.
Geo.
That's horrifying.
That is roughed in. Maybe this is back in Unity. This is a Pro Builder mesh that allows me to move it around in Unity. Usually, you're not able to modify meshes. Like usually I'm not going to take this guy and change the way that he's modeled, but Pro Builder is made to do that. And by the way, they can convert models to be editable, but it's just not something you want to do all the time for your normal assets. But your work in progress assets, your assets that you're going to potentially project, well, those could be Pro Builder. And this kind of like blew our minds. Like this totally changed the setup for what we were talking about in terms of world creation, world generation. And so while there were a bunch of tests that went down to after that, the one that really stood out was this right here. This is a portion of the terrain of Fairthale. Specifically, it's mainly Oldwood, with some ghetto mountains that I threw in using the Pro Builder tool plugin in I guess it's a package in Unity, and then I exported that stuff, both the terrain as well as the Pro Builder mesh, and eroded them together. And it's just amazing. This is so exciting that this happened, like this right here happened from that. Like when you have to build a world that's this big, and you've got a really small team, for us to get from this, and it can place trees and rocks on it, that's amazing. That's straight up amazing. And so that's what we did. We committed to this concept, and we started moving forward. We started moving forward to the rest of the world, with the knowledge that we then had from PA4 to apply to it. So back with this stuff, I've got to talk a little bit about terrain and height maps. And so basically, one of the issues with a height map and terrain is that you can't rotate it. It's not like a normal mesh. You can't just take it and rotate it. Literally the value will apply, but it won't do anything to it. Sorry, this is lagging out. And so, for example, like if you have like, let's say this is Thrown Fast, let's say this is AVP, this is Fairthale, and this is BRK. Well, that's all good and dandy if I want to say, okay, we'll just put BRK on the edge of Fairthale, and then we'll put AVP right here, and then we'll take Thrown Fast because it connects to AVP there, and we'll do that. But what if you need to rotate the actual stuff so it lines up better? I mean, what if, gameplay needs it, design needs it? What if somebody needs it? How do you deal with that eventuality? And that's where all that Pro Builder mesh comes in. What we did basically was we rebuilt the areas using Pro Builder mesh, but in the exact same layout as what there was before. This is a screenshot from the Coast stream, actually, the Twitch stream where he went over to Hangor in AVP. These were both taken from that Twitch vid, and there were some issues with the placement of Hangor in comparison to the main resting place of the humans of this world. Like all of the humans in the whole world, their main city is right over there, and yet there is this fortified orc encampment that is like within a stone's throw. And to make that more clear, this is a map of this is an older version of Fairthale, much older, um, with AVP overlaid on top of it. So Fairthale started off like the brush that we had been painting with in demo and Oldwood and the Isle of Infinite Storm. It's a big brush, and so when you bring that back to what we were working with, the size of the feeling of the different zones was starting to be pretty significant. Uh, One of the other things that we needed to deal with was a lot of PA4 feedback regarding it feeling like a Disney theme park where you've got, Demeth over here, you've got BRK right here, Ratkin, there's a town here, then you got Hangor, and there's just no room to breathe and adventure. There was skeletons. Anyways, so like this whole area was Hangor, and if we're gonna bring back the feeling of AVP and all the placement of AVP, but make it better, how do we do that? Well, the way that we solved it was through, gray boxing it all out in terms of the terrain, and then literally picking it up and moving it somewhere else in the world. Um, Now, there's a little bit of a difference right here. Some of those meshes have been replaced, some haven't been, just since at about this point, we had all of the orc assets. Very exciting. Um, Boom, orc assets. But yeah, so this screenshot, like that's why that looks different down there. But this screenshot shows the final layout of what we went for. And what's cool about it is that you see the original AVP assets that would have been overlaid on top of right here. You see them still right there. We kept the bones. We kept everything exactly as is. We just moved it. And this layout right here, once the area was, once we had AVP and generally like gray boxed out, this took 30 minutes, maybe an hour to make this pass right here. And yet, like it does so much for the zone. It separates them, you get like little reveals, and it's such a broad brush. And when we came back with putting some trees down, putting some rocks down, from the Thrown Fast side, you don't see orcs. As you get closer, you see snow beginning to happen. As you get further along, there's even more snow. There's, the river will ice over. And then as we get deeper and deeper, it changes the climate. Talking about that PVE, you know, the yeah, it's just really exciting. And then it became this. But the important part is that the layout of Hangor remained the same. We didn't lose any of that. We just made it better. So pretty exciting stuff. Let's see, where are we going next? Where are we going next? I'm getting lost here. Oh yeah, so okay, so we did this to a lot of zones. You know, BRK got it, AVP got it, TF got it, Silent Plane started that way, Merc got it, but each one, you know, I think BRK took about a month, maybe, Thronefast about a month, AVP about a month. Altogether, when you do all the asset placement, the nav mesh, the baking, all the things, we were zooming. It's awesome. It's really been a fast rate of iteration for this stuff, um, and that's really exciting. Uh, so, anyways, I guess we're gonna transition over to the rock kit. That's what my notes are saying. And before we talk about the rock kit, you got to focus on the fact that like what we had learned from Sleepless. Sleepless had developed a set of rock shaders that allowed us to have like tiling. They allowed us to have sand placed on things. It allowed for a main map and a smaller map, but it allowed for a lot of things that we hadn't had previous to the game. And it changed the shape language as well from something very, very different than what the rest of the world had been. So we learned a lot. These are some of the final versions of it. Final versions of those sculpts. This is actually, oh, oh my goodness. This is actually the time lapse. I can just talk over this real quick, but basically these started out as these gray box meshes that then just got more and more detail applied onto them, and it was a great learning process for us, but it was also um, something that I'm proud to show in its final form. So that's pretty exciting. It's fun to see this stuff happen. There's a lot of like cleanup involved whenever you're sculpting. Just whenever you see me like going through having these weird things, that's like just some programs need a little bit more love when you're being messy. um, yeah. So that was some of the sculpting. Some of the texture stuff that we learned was also really fun. So this is the tiler for the shard texture that goes on those guys, and it used Megascan rocks as geo for displacement, and then we scattered those in ZBrush, took screenshots in ZBrush, and then textured fully in Designer to create our final look. Um, but it was just it was really cool. Anyways, so yeah, learned a lot. Learned a lot. At the same time, we were working on the glass shards, the storm glass as we called them, and trying to make those look as nice as we could. Jerry did a great job on these. There was a lot of, you can see the difference as it went through, and it just became a really striking piece. But those were assets which we needed to go through in order to learn our limitations. You know, learn what we could actually do and apply it to the rest of the world. A lot of Jarrett's concept art. This is some of the initial testing of dust going down. Oh man, I'm running out of time. All right, I got to zoom. So, anyways, talking about rocks. Our previous setup in PA4 using all the rocks had a bunch of asset pack rocks, and here they all are. There's a bunch of them. These are all unique and different. They're material variants, and that these guys were great for what they were and being an asset pack and all that stuff. But we just needed to move beyond it. We had a better shader than what they were using, um, that allowed for a lot more data, a lot higher of a texture fidelity, if you will. And so what we did is endeavor to create a small pack of rocks which could be used to batch better. Their textures would be more efficient. Like everything would be better. They'd be better for climbing. And then to use those as much as we could to get as far as we could. So this is one of the meshes. And you can see that it has this blending going on between the base texture and the tiler texture, and that's constant in all of them. We created a couple different tilers that have different, this is like the sandstone one. But this is an actual texture that we made internally, and so we have all the flexibility in the world for each of these meshes. I mean let's see, there's this guy. I have this guy pulled up. So I sculpted him out, and I went really light on the detailing for the high res sculpt because I wanted to be able to do detail passes in Substance Painter for my smaller stuff. Then from there, that gets blended in with its actual main height map. Like, so this is, let's push this up. You can see that there's that lower res height map that has a lot more big detail, and then I blended it in with a smaller one. But anyways, you have all that control. You have all these files created for something, so you have all this flexibility for the future. But this asset can go all the way up and down the pipe and get changed and see it populate throughout the world and apply to all the different material variations of it as well. Um, this is meant for iterating. This is meant for long-term use. These guys, I don't have Maya files, I don't have Painter files, I don't have Photoshop files, and the textures themselves, typically I don't have source files for. So the main part about what we're doing here is making something that we can scale for the future. So it's pretty exciting. But anyways, let's zoom over and talk about kits. Oh, I did have a party trick I wanted to show. Just a sec. So part of the way that this works is that they they get their projection based on the height of the world, or the up vector of the world, and so when you move it, it actually changes across the mesh. Like it actually changes to where that moss or snow would be showing up.
Huh.
It's doing this on all the assets. While it did do this before to some extent, it didn't have the height blending aspect where
That's kind of
it would actually give
interesting.
you more information to it. So it's just really cool. Yeah. So anyways, back to caves. Gotta go really quick. Basically, one of the things that we realized we needed to do was come up with some sort of thing that we could place quickly for caves in the interim before all the tools were created for Houdini. There's a million awesome caves out there. There's so much cave reference from games. We just needed to get it done. We needed to start addressing it. When you think of game development and you think of a cave kit, you immediately have to aim your head in terms of PVC pipes and T connectors, elbows, junction points, stuff like that. And so that's at least how we approach it in terms of our initial layout. Now, the pieces that are spawned within it are different, but you've got a lot of play when you start with these pieces. This stuff was done in about a week. or like less than a week, but like all this testing was brought into Unity and then also tested, and just we iterated on it so quickly. It was awesome. You were getting results so quick. We started to decide how we wanted these things, like where assets would actually be plugged into. We knew what we had with the rock kit. Like the rock kit could tile correctly, we could have detailed correctly. We're going to use the rock shader on these things. They're just going to be different shapes and plugged into each other. And so from there, this is a bunch of our blocking out and seeing how these rooms might connect. Got your scale reference. But we created basically like 3 initial rooms. You've got like a connector room. You've got a straight, an elbow, a longer straight, and an up. Then from there, I broke it into minor asset pieces. So you've got columns, you've got a floor that could double as a ceiling. You've got a mushroom, stalagmite, I think it's called. You've got groups of stalagmites. You've got, more and more. And then this would be you plug this into the bottom of a wall. This would be in the corner of a wall. These would be your walls. And so once you rebuild your rooms, it immediately starts to become something that you can use, and you can like place down quickly. Like this is one group. It's awesome. So yeah, like this is just a short look into how this is going currently. Oh yeah, I forgot the end with a bang. I have too much to show you guys. Okay, so this is just an example of that cave, but let's end with a bang. So I just want to show y'all where we're at today. So we're going to go to this spot right here. This is at the edge of Silent Plains and Fairthale. This is geo that's being projected onto a terrain, and just so y'all know, I'm not messing with you. Let me fly over there. Boop, 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 boop. So this is, and I've got like a ton of stuff turned off, but like this is that location, and it's that geo that's being represented right here, in a low res form, but still. So what we do with it is we erode it. Same thing, it's right there, but now it's got an erosion. I'm able to then break it into, like, deal with the water, deal with the road that's right there. You can't really tell, but it's been smoothed out a bit, which is super cool. And then we start to deal with hole cutting. There's no hole cutting in this demo, but that's what happens. And I'm going to push up the rock layer a little bit, and now we're going to start laying in assets. So these old wood trees have been placed based on geo within. It's like a biome mask, and that allows us to, I don't have to hand place these. They go wherever that mask is. So that's kind of a cool little side note. Place some roots on it. Add in some rocks where the cliffs are too sheer. Maybe add in some more rocks. Maybe add in some more rocks. Add in some vines wherever there are surfaces that have the sheer enough angle for a vine. Add in some trees. And then paint it. Why not? So this is an example of where the grass would be painted, and like where dirt would be painted, and where water would go. It's not a full complete like painted map that I'm outputting right this second, but it's just to show y'all that that was all generated just from this content right here, like just this mesh right here is what made this, and it's just really, I think it's a bright future. So I'll leave you there.
I think there they
Wait
are.
to share.
You know what? I just realized that we were muted. So I said,
No
Jimmy, that was
problem.
awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yes. Happy to show stuff.
Yeah, no, that was cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We certainly did. It's awesome seeing the stuff that our team is working on constantly. Shall we get into the patch notes?
Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh god.
Patch notes.
There's a tear to my eye every time.
That was not an improvement on last
No,
time.
Let's not do that anymore.
Just to be completely candid. All right, well, let's do this. Let's dive in. So one of the coolest things, one of the most exciting things this month is we were able to get the Rogue and the Wizard classes back online, and we were able to premiere those during the first session of PA5. It was very recently, and also we had a lot of work done on the mastery system and the mastery upgrade, so getting those in and tested. PA5 first session, obviously a really big event for us this month, and encouraged by how well that went. Good feedback, good stability, good fun. It's been very affirming to see the game coming along and being experienced by real players, and the feedback has been very, very positive and very, very exciting for us. We've continued content development in a few places in Fairthale that we'll be able to be bringing online soon for our internal testers. We've also begun the initial zone development process, the concepting process for another one of the King's Reach zones called Eastern Plains, or at least tentatively named Eastern Plains for now. We've seen some massive build level optimizations this month. And what that means is we've reduced the current client build size by 75.9%, and the runtime memory usage of that client by the high 20%, something like, or I'm sorry, the low 20%, it's like 21% or so. 21.8%. So some massive build level optimizations. We were able to get Unitask online for easy async code, which is something that has made our programmers very happy. As Jimmy's been speaking on today, we've got a considerable amount of work that he's done this month on the Houdini integration, and just kind of getting our pipeline, kind of our ducks in a row as we're getting that moving in that direction. We've improved rapid melee combat animations. I'll switch to a different list here. Had lots of fixes and improvements to the general ability system. So as we've been getting feedback from our pre-alpha tests, we've been able to action just about all those things. We finished our initial refactor on the merchants and player trading. So the merchant system and the player trading system has had significant rework and improvements and optimizations, and those will be online for our merchants are already online for session 1, but we'll have player trading in for session 2 as well. So a nice being there for our pre-alpha testers. And I will stop there because I want to be able to save more time for Q&A than we usually have. So, but just the tip of the iceberg. Lots of really amazing stuff being worked on, and can't wait to have our testers back in soon.
Right on.
All right, you ready for some user questions there, Jimmy?
Let's do the questions.
Hit
All
me.
right, we get a couple from the forum here. Unicron would like to know, how much creative license do you have going from Jared's concept art to implementing those environments in game?
I mean, we have a lot of freedom because Jared is a nice guy. But,
The nicest.
at the end of the day, it really comes down to, is it efficient and does it, also look good? So I might want something, Jared might want something, but if Kyle's not happy, it's not going to work out. It has to load.
Team effort. All right. This is a good one. Jetsomni wants to know, are day-night cycle implementations at a rudimentary level targeted for pre-alpha 5, or what stage would this be targeted? Are there going to be other nuances to the day-night cycle, such as keeps turning off lights, flora, environment, having different effects, etc.
Yeah, I don't think we're quite ready to say what phase of development Day Night is going to come in. Obviously, it has a lot of art level consideration, which Shimmy you could speak to. But obviously, if you have a dynamically changing light source, then you need to make sure that your assets are going to look good in both of those settings. So we're definitely not yet at the point where we want to start integrating that. But as we've said before, the nighttime is going to provide us an incredible wealth of opportunity for content and in-game experiences. So you can expect a very dynamic and robust content, kind of things to encounter,
Robust.
things
Everybody
to
drink.
experience, things to see, hear, and also we want that believable layer in the NPC life too. So we've always, kind of envisioned NPCs doing one thing during the day and a different thing at night. So the guards are, going around lighting their braziers and their torches at night. They're, maybe walking in groups of 2 at night as opposed to 1, and just things that make that really feel like a different time of day and a different setting at night.
Speaking of day-night cycles, I'm totally just throwing this in randomly here, but we will be looking for a technical artist very soon. So we'll be posting that job posting soon. So if any of you out there are watching and you want to work with Visionary Realms as a technical artist, keep an eye on visionaryrealms.com for the job posting.
Throw your helmet in the ring, as they say. Okay. Anyway, Nushu would like to know: is every environment planned to be a massive in scale, or are there sub-regions, regions which are short in size?
Yeah,
I mean, okay.
So go ahead.
No, I just hope you understood what I was saying there.
Yeah, no, I get the gist of it. There's definitely going to be large and big zones, and even within a large zone, there could be like a funnel point that then opens up so that you get a reveal. We do that a lot in our zone design. Is you get like reveal moments, aha moments. So even the big ones should still have moments of compression. So yeah,
Sweet. Tech Ninja 1137 would like to know: I'm curious what type of hardware you use on your personal workstation while you're working, as well. Besides Unity, Houdini, and without breaking proprietary VR secrets, are there any other software you use to help bring your vision to life?
Woo. Well, I have kind of a server computer from last era, and it's awesome, but it's just this weird Xeon thing. 1,000,000 gigs of RAM, 1070 Ti. In terms of software, I use Substance Painter, Designer, ZBrush, World Machine, SpeedTree, Photoshop, Maya, obviously. There's XNormal, 3D Coat, GeoGlyph used to be a thing, but it's not anymore. All right, yeah, that's it. Whatever. Just reading my list.
Cool. Galden would like to know: there are many talented modders that are capable of creating high-quality performant maps when provided with prefabs and texture. Assuming you had a way to verify only VR-owned IP was used in a map, do you think it would be a good idea to use this talent pool, perhaps just to fill in the blanks in grayscale area?
I mean, so for me, it's a different thing for like the company as a whole. But personally, I don't mind that idea as long as it kept the same art standards of the rest of the assets. Didn't feel like, you just transmogged something. Oh, okay. I said the word.
Minus
but no, I mean, I love
somewhere.
community input. I think that's great. It gets a lot of people off the ground as well. So, once you have to have a team, you have to have enough people to be able to handle incoming assets. So that's not something that would happen soon, but down the line, that'd be awesome. Personally,
Yes, if you were drinking at home, transmog was the word of the day. What is your favorite
Okay.
part of being involved in development of Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen, other than working with us?
Other than, honestly, it is the team. It's definitely the team. And like the game at the end of the day is exciting, and I'm excited about it. Obviously, I like kind of the theme that we're talking about. But it's the team that keeps me. So yeah, that's my favorite part.
Okay, got room for a couple more here. Nick Chose has a couple good ones. I'm going to ask a couple from him. Are you striving to create a world that looks mostly wild and untamed? Let's start with that one.
I think it should feel wild and untamed in wild and untamed places, but if you're in a city, it should feel like a city. So, does it start out as a natural environment and we add in assets to it, like almost like it's a Houdini layer? Maybe. But yeah, no, I think wild and lived in is the way to go.
Cool. Actually, he wants to know, will Terminus have bees nests?
This is a spoiler. CP, can I say this? Can I say this? Recently, we
Dropping
added a
some
bee's
beans.
nest to the game. One of the zones. You want to tell them which zone?
Go for it, man.
It's Avenger's Pass. It has bees now. What?
Interesting.
There you go. The big news for tonight: Avatar's Pass now has bees nests. Okay.
Here, I don't know if that might be too much to handle.
That's from your man Convo, by the way. Shout out to Convo.
And
Yeah,
PantheonMMO.com just went down from all of the traffic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's great.
I blame Convo. I always blame. Okay. What zone has been your favorite or most challenging one to dress? And is there a new type of technology that you've worked on in Pantheon that you're excited for players to see? Obviously, we saw Houdini.
Yeah, it would definitely be Houdini integrated for us because we're a small indie studio, very small team. To be able to use a big tool like that and make it last as far as it's lasted, other companies would be huge. Yeah, I don't know. I forgot. I got blinded when I thought Houdini. What was the start of that question?
Your favorite zone, the most challenging to work on, I guess.
I like the Isle of Infinite Storm a whole lot because of especially the distance stuff. That's been a challenge for me. But I think the biggest challenge has been Project Fairtale as a whole because it's it's starting from the ground up. It's going all the way to the top. So for me, that's definitely the biggest learning process. But yeah.
Cool. A couple more from these are from Deuterino. These are good ones when building the worlds of Pantheon.
Ooh. Well, I love Horizon Zero Dawn and God of War. Anything from Naughty Dog. I don't know. Those are kind of my I love them studios. So those are my inspirations. Yeah.
Cool.
I have a lot of peers as well that inspire me regularly. So yeah, there's a lot of. Go to artstation.com, all y'all.
Those are all Sony studios too, I think.
Somebody. Hey, okay. What does player versus environment mean to you?
Player versus environment. I think it just means you're not handed everything on a silver platter. You actually have to work to get to that cliff in the distance. You have to figure out how to get down that cave to that thing that you need to go to, or you have to figure out how to survive the deep pressure of the water. I don't know. It's just all the different things come together. It's not just one thing for sure.
There you go. Ben, did any from chat that struck your fancy?
No. No. Nope, just taking a look now.
Okay. All right.
I don't think that the bees are wearing Eagles jerseys, but I could check.
Nice.
All right. I think those are good from the. Unless you got another one from.
No, I think we're getting close to time anyway. So everyone, thanks again for joining us for another stream for Pantheon. If you haven't already, head on over to PantheonMMO.com to check out more information, get more information. While you're there, check out the pledge packages, see if there's anything in there that interests you. We are in Pre-Alpha 5 right now, which means that we're opening up the realms periodically to allow our Pre-Alpha testers in. Those are the VIP pledges and above. Thanks again, everybody. And Chris, thanks for coming. Dave, thanks for coming. Jimmy, it was great to have you on the show. Any last words before we head out?
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Wear a mask.
Moving upward. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Okay. So, first of all, that was really good, and there's a few things that I want to touch on, as always. For those of you, that come to these watch parties, that would just kind of I try to shut up as much as I can so that we can hear what they have to say, and then afterwards we'll just kind of like unpack it a little bit, get my thoughts on it. I do want to revisit that question that was asked at the beginning of the stream from Simo. Asked a really good question about why I'm able to stay so optimistic about Pantheon after following it so closely for all these years, and I will get to that. But before I do that, I'll end on that note, and I'll kind of talk about what I saw here in the stream. It kind of stuck out to me. So as I had hoped, there were a few key things that I noticed about this stream that I felt kind of dovetailed nicely with what they were saying in the producer's letter about how they're going to show, be more open about their progress moving forward. And the first of which was during that video that Jimmy made. He showed us like the checklists of what they were doing with Houdini. And now, before I get too deep into this, I should say that Jimmy is great, and I would love to see him in more of these streams. That was the first time I think we've seen his face. He's, like they said, he's in one of the co-streams talking several months ago, and he always just seems like a really just upbeat like positive guy. It's fun to listen to him talk. You can tell that he's excited about what he's doing, and so I would love to see him in more of these streams, and especially with world building. Like, world building is a huge part of making an MMO, and that's kind of why I think it's so important that they picked this topic as the topic that they covered following the producer's letter, and kind of dug into the meat of this world building process. Like I said, even showing like their their to-do lists and the notes and their thoughts and such, and being able to see it in action. Like, there's understandably been a lot of concern that I've seen among the community about looking at it like, okay, you look at the Atlas, and there's probably, we don't have an exact number, but by my estimations anyway, we're looking at a complete world would probably be like 30 to 35 zones. Again, that's my estimation. That's nothing confirmed, but just basing off the Atlas, and knowing that not every Atlas is, or not every zone is noted on the Atlas, like just kind of judging by the size of the King's Reach continent, if we multiply that by 3, ends up somewhere probably around 30 to 35 zones. Anyway, I actually made a video about this on YouTube, talking about how many zones in Pantheon have been revealed so far since the beginning of the development. There's actually more than people may think, but that kind of ties into what I was saying, where there's a lot of concerns that I've seen about people even looking at, okay, even at the zones that they have shown previews of so far, if it's taken this long to get that many zones, somebody who might not know much about game development might assume that, like, okay, you take how long the amount of time it's taken to make these zones, and the amount of time it takes to make King's Reach, and then you multiply that by 3, and the same amount of time that has been applied to this continent will be the same exact amount of time that is for the other continents, and then that's where you get these crazy release date estimations like 2030 and all this sorts of stuff. So I think that and I think that up before the stream was a fairly valid concern. Like, it was hard to really understand the process of how world building actually works, and I think they broke it down really well here tonight to show that to show how much of a difference a tool like Houdini will make. If you get that tech in, like we saw it firsthand of how just exponentially faster that will make things moving forward. Like that is a game changer, and we saw evidence of that here tonight. And I would like to see them. I would love for just Jimmy to do more streams like this, like on a regular basis, just on his own, because I enjoyed watching that little tidbit, and I think that should be like a more regular segment. And that, again, just kind of like brings everybody in, and they can actually watch the world be built before their very own eyes. I think a lot of the concern and stuff comes just from a lack of understanding and not being able to actually see what's going on. And so it's all just kind of guesswork in your own heads. But if we see how quickly, comparatively, I mean, world building is still an extremely time consuming process. But like, now that they can actually make, measurable, noticeable progress in one sitting, like that would just be a great thing to see more of. So just really overall a great showing of the world building tools. I can't even really express how how interesting it's going to be to see that momentum pick up, and as the zones come online much more quicker than they have in the past. I think that's going to be really, really awesome. That obviously that was the centerpiece of this stream. I think Java had a lot of good patch notes as well. I'm glad to see that segment was back. But like I said, they said this stream was going to be about world building, and it was certainly about world building. But I think that, again, super important topic, because that's a lot of the legwork, I think, from here on out. Like, they've done the time fleshing out the designs and such, and now it's execution. Now it's actually getting it in the world. And so when you have a tool like Houdini that just automates a majority of that process, and so not everything is like hand placing each tree, just with the click of a button, it just rolls it out over a large area. That is exactly the type of tool that they need as a small team working on a massive project. So that should be very encouraging to all of us. And on that note, I want to kind of wrap back around to what I was saying earlier about the question that I wanted to get back to, because I did not really have sufficient time to answer it. I only had a couple minutes left before the VR stream kicked off, and somebody asked me about how I'm able to stay so excited about Pantheon after all this time. And I think that's a good question that I want to dig into more. So first things first, about why I'm able to stay so patient and optimistic, I guess. Optimistic is kind of a loaded term that I try not to use very often. You could call it hopeful. I just prefer the word patient. And a lot of that, at a fundamental level, is just personality, okay? And that's just how I am. That's just kind of how I've always been. That's how I've been raised. Not everybody is like that, and that's okay. That's to be expected. I think I'm just naturally predisposed to have above average patience, I would say. My tendency is to wait and see, and to try to gather as much clues as I can before I jump to conclusions or get really frustrated or anything. Part of that, I think, is, again, just the way I was born. Part of that, too, is just practice. It's a mindset that can be trained, that I just decided several years ago that's just how I wanted to be, and I really wanted to exercise that muscle mentally to just be more patient. And so a lot of it stems from that, but it's not just that, because there's a lot of other factors in play that allow me to feel this way about Pantheon specifically. Again, because let's see, so I first learned about Pantheon in March. I first started really getting into it in like March 2016. Okay, so that's 4.5 years ago. That's a long time. And I don't think a lot of people realize, like, my life personally has changed dramatically since I first started following Pantheon. Like, major life changes. But yet Pantheon has actually, like, I have been able to consistently stay interested in Pantheon all that time. So I think it's a logical question. Like, it may seem crazy. I realize to some people it seems crazy, but again, there's a lot of key reasons. Like, okay, why, as all these other things that have changed throughout my life, why hasn't Pantheon just kind of fallen by the wayside and lost my interest? So just as a few examples, just to because I don't really talk about this very often, just a few examples of how my life has changed since I first started following Pantheon. In 2016, I was single, living with my parents. I do have the same, I've been at the same job since then. So I guess that's really the only major thing that has changed since then. But since then, I have moved twice, and I got a girlfriend and am now engaged to her. That's all in the past 4.5 years. Like, I've been in a relationship with Pantheon longer than my fiance. Okay. That's how extreme this journey with Pantheon has been. So why is that? First of all, it's because I realized very early on that this was going to be a marathon, okay? And just my understanding of MMOs, I constantly, again, it was an effort. This didn't really happen entirely by accident, that it's like I made a conscious effort to keep a sense of perspective as far as how long MMO development always is, and particularly crowdfunding. I didn't really understand the how much crowdfunding would have an impact on that back then, but still, the whole argument of like, oh, it's taking so long, like how are you not bored of it by now? It's like, it's that remembering that MMO development is always a marathon, and also realizing that when you are aware of it, it's going to feel longer than if you weren't aware of it, like, obviously. So with traditional MMO development that's done behind closed doors because they don't have to crowdfund, when you have to crowdfund, you announce it way, literally years before you would otherwise. If you're a bigger studio, an established studio that has funding on day one, all of this time, all the past years that Pantheon has been in development, we would be completely oblivious to. We wouldn't even know that Pantheon exists. And obviously, it's a lot easier to be patient for something if you don't even know it exists. But once you're aware of it, and you are hopeful for it in the sense that you want it to become a reality, it just slows down your perception of time so much, makes it feel so much longer, because you're just, I want to get into the game. You're just spend much more time thinking like, I just want to play this game. And I have that, I still feel that way too. Now, as a side note, that's part of the reason why I kind of got so involved in the community, is because like, this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but like, I just want to do anything I can. Even just telling somebody about the game, I feel like in my mind is maybe has a little chance of like speeding up the development just a little bit more. Like if they pledge, and then then Pantheon will come out 5 minutes sooner. Like I just want to play the game. But anyway, lost track of where I was going. Okay, time. When you are aware of it, it's going to feel a lot longer. And so I never really bought into the whole argument like, oh, it's taking too long. It's like, is it really? I don't think so. Especially compared to other MMOs that have come out in the past and been successful and taken even longer. Now, I try not to compare one for one like that, but even still, just when we're talking about the amount of time, and it's like, I think it just feels longer than it actually is when you're looking forward to it, but you're just kind of stuck there waiting. So there's there's that aspect of it. But then kind of along with that, there is kind of that aspect of like, rather than just waiting by helplessly, I think actually, now that I think about it, getting involved does help the time go by faster. Rather than feeling like completely helpless, getting involved in the community for me personally has helped me to stay way more excited about the game. It's not even just about the game for me anymore. It's about the community and the friendships that I have made and the relationships that I've established and the things that I've learned just by talking to people and being involved in the community makes it feel like that this time isn't wasted. It's all about that. Just, Pantheon itself is about enjoying the journey and not the destination. So like that, you can kind of start to see where that mentality has kind of broken me out of this like tunnel vision on when's the release date, when is launch day going to be, and fixating on that. And it's more just, it's a lot easier to remain optimistic when you're just like happy to be here. I'm just happy to watch an MMO get developed. Like all this stuff about the tools that they use for world building is fascinating to me, just me personally. I just think it's interesting. So there's that, and it's just fun to feel like you're in on the ground level of something that could become much bigger. Again, like I was saying at the beginning of the stream, without a doubt in my mind, Pantheon will release eventually. I don't want to hazard a guess as to when or anything else. I just know that it will at some point. And again, it's like I don't think it's super beneficial to sit here and speculate about all those factors, because it's like time will tell. I just don't think it's a good use of my time right now to just sit and just ponder when there's really no way to know for sure where we stand right now. So so there's that aspect of it, of just kind of enjoying the journey and making the most of where we are now. Definitely makes the wait a lot easier. And lastly, I will say too that I should acknowledge that as a VIP myself, I think it's a lot easier. I think we have it a lot easier than those who have pledged at a champion level or a supporter level who have not pledged at all. It's a lot easier to be patient because VIPs have access to a lot more information and are a lot more plugged into the devs in their process, and so I'm often trying to, it's not easy, but I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody who doesn't know what I know. And that's where a lot of the inspiration for my videos come from on YouTube, is like remembering not everybody knows what I know. The fact that I've been watching it so extremely closely for so long now, I have a whole catalog of information to draw from, and all of that in some way supports my confidence in the future of the game. And so it's understandable that if people don't have that same degree of understanding about the process, it's a lot more difficult for them to remain optimistic. So I wanted to mention that too, that I definitely empathize with that. I do my best to try to bring you into the point of view that I have. It's very difficult, again, so I can't really get you up to speed on the past 4.5 years of what I've been paying attention to. And again, because some of it's under NDA, and so that's why I kind of tell, even just in general, I'll tell people, like, watch the VIPs, because they're the ones who actually know what's going on. If you get some random people that are just watching the game from a distance, there's all sorts, they have their own sorts of like preconceived notions and assumptions that they're just drawing from their own perspective, which is an incomplete perspective. And I'm not saying I have a 100% completely accurate perspective, but the closer you are and the more you know, that's the people whose mood you should be paying attention to, okay? Because I think if the VIPs and the people who are actually paying close attention, if they seem content, then I think that should be a good sign for everybody else, that things will be okay. So that's just kind of my quick little spiel about that. I saw a couple other questions that I wanted to address as well. Oh, C says, what other MMORPGs are you excited for, or is Pantheon the only one? It's another good question. MMOs that I'm excited for. Now, Pantheon's the only future MMO that I'm really looking at that really appeals to me. Specifically because of that PvE aspect. Like, PvE, group-oriented specifically, PvE is my jam. The tackling content with friends where we're strategizing and we're coordinating and we're communicating and overcoming obstacles, like that was, since I was raised on that in EverQuest, that process of coordinating with my friends and that's just ingrained. That's how my brain is wired. That's how I get dopamine is through that, and that's it's just a big part of how my brain works, literally from playing EverQuest for so long. So because of just that fundamental philosophy that Pantheon is applying, and the fact that there's not really any other MMOs out there that I can see that take that aspect specifically as seriously as Pantheon does, there aren't really any other that particularly excite me. I might fool around with some other ones as they come up, but Pantheon pretty much has my sole attention right now, And again, just personality wise, that's just how I prefer. I want to know as much about Pantheon as I can and focus on that and to make sure that I don't miss anything, rather than just kind of spreading my attention thin. That's just my preference. And kind of along that line, so C says, I think Ashes' creation is going to kill this game, but I will play Pantheon too. It's like I don't really buy into that either, because I think Ashes of Creation is a very different game. It's appealing to different audiences. I don't think it's an oversimplification to say that they are competing directly. I think the past 15 years of WoW just utterly dominating the MMO industry has kind of programmed MMO fans to think that there can only be one, to think that it's like that the MMO genre is this king of the hill situation where only one will survive and you either dominate it or you die. And it's just not the case anymore, because WoW has made the genre to be like that for so long. People want something different, and not even just different from WoW, a different MMO landscape, because we've seen how that dynamic is just not healthy for the genre. Because if it's king of the hill, then everybody, all the other studios think that they have to just be WoW but better and emulate that, or just try to leech off as much of that success as they can just to survive. It's not that's not an environment that is a catalyst for innovation or diversity. And so it's very clear to me that the genre is headed in more of a direction where rather than a king of the hill, we've got a good old pumpkin pie, and it's like you got different slices of the pie, and one slice is targeting one particular demographic, and it's for them, and it's great. Like Ashes of Creation is much more sandboxy, and it seems to be leaning a lot more towards PvP as well. Now, there's undeniably some similarities, but again, there's enough differences that there will be people that like Ashes, and that's their game, and that's great. But then there will still be other people who there's things about Ashes that they don't like, and so Pantheon is their game. And then there's probably another category where they might play both, because again, there's things they like about this one and there's things they like about the other one, and there's some overlap there, and people don't just have to play one game. So the genre though is big enough that there's plenty of room to have multiple successful games, in the sense that they are sustainable and they're profitable for long periods of time, and just can kind of coexist in the genre. There's not as much direct competition, I think, as people are expecting. Goose Never Dies 09 says, I think AOC is going to be too complex. A lot of people here want the simplicity and strategy of Pantheon. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way of putting it. That's why I was I don't know if like complex is the word I would use, but like that is part of it. And that's kind of why I say it's like a sandboxy thing, where there's the world events, and you're like you're building up the world, but the world is constantly moving. It's based on player actions, and the players just kind of create the world. Now, like, that is a cool concept, and it's not hard to figure out why a lot of people like that. But at the same time, that is completely different, and it's not at all the same as Pantheon's world. That is, I don't want to use the word static, but the world itself, like the layout of the zones, you have more of a there's more of an opportunity to kind of become an expert, like in a particular zone. That's something, again, that I personally like a lot. I really don't want to, say, take a break from the game for 6 months or whatever and come back and have the zone that I logged out in be just completely and utterly different around me. Like, I think there's something to be said, and again, I know I'm not the only one that feels this way, where you can keep coming back to a zone over and over again. And yes, maybe the spawns and like the NPCs that are there are different, and so the content that you're encountering is a little bit more challenging there, that it's not completely predictable, but you can still, the hallways and stuff, the overall layout of the zone, you can still know that like the back of your hand. And so I think that creates a really interesting dynamic, so that like, if you become an expert in that zone and other people come to you because they want you to guide them through this really tricky part of this zone. And I have family members too, like for EverQuest, for example, my uncle like took a break from the game because they had kids, and he came back like literally like a decade later, and we went to like Lava Storm. What were those goblin mines around that area? Mines of Nurga, something like that. Anyway, irrelevant. He came back literally a decade later, and because he had spent so much time in that zone back in the early days of EQ, he came back, and because the layout of the zone was still the same, he was able to guide us through that zone, which is like crazy to me. How you can just feel so at home in the world, I guess is what I'm trying to say, where it's like when it's not constantly shifting on a massive scale, like I feel like it starts to feel more like a home. You feel more comfortable there because it's like, yes, that's where I left you. You know what I mean? So there's absolutely an audience that would specifically prefer that style over something like Ashes, where the nodes and such are constantly shifting. Volcano says, do you still play EverQuest? Not very often, unfortunately. Pretty uncommon. I picked it up a little bit for one of the progression servers, not the most recent one, but the one before that. And yeah, it's just kind of it's just something that maybe still my family and I will do just occasionally, just kind of if we feel like it. It's just more of like a nostalgia hit at this point. But it's still really nice that, there's still like my cousins and stuff will still boot it up every once in a while, get together and just run some dungeons, and it's just a good time. Cornav, no, I didn't play Cornav. You're making me wanna look up which one. What was the last one that I did? It's sad that I can't even really remember the name of it. I'll notice it as soon, like literally as soon as I see it. Lockjaw, I think, was the last one that I did. I know it did range. I did Rage Fire, but there was another one. There's another one after that. That was a while ago too. Again, it's like it's been a little bit. Mangler. Thank you. That was it. I knew I would remember it as soon as I saw it. Yeah, I know they did like the Eriduin server. I didn't get on that, unfortunately, but I did do Mangler. But anyway. Oops. He says, have you heard about the game called Core Punk? I don't think I have. Doesn't ring a bell. Cease also says, how is combat going to be in Pantheon like classic WoW? That's kind of a hard question to answer succinctly, and I don't want to just say, yeah, it's like classic WoW, because what does that even mean? I will say, again, just to direct you to my YouTube channel, I have a lot of information about the combat system on my YouTube channel. So if I had to summarize it though, it's a dual target. Pantheon's combat system is a dual target system. So you tab target, you have an offensive, but you also have a defensive target simultaneously. And so, defensive target being for like buffs and heals and just in your allies, anything that's not an enemy NPC. And so that way you don't need to switch between the two. If you can have your enemy and an ally targeted simultaneously. And so when you hit your, a damaging ability, it'll go straight to your offensive target. And if you hit a heal, it'll go straight to your defensive target. And so it's definitely, if I had to pick a word to summarize Pantheon's combat, it would be strategic, is a word we hear a lot used to describe it. Definitely not like an action Twitch combat, but somewhere in the middle of the road. It's not the sort of thing where you just like auto attack and then hit kick every 5 seconds either, and they're at least trying to do away from the sort of like button mashing rotations thing where it's like, this does this much damage and then this does this much damage, but over time. And then you're, if you're a DPS, you just kind of like, as soon as they're off cooldown, you just hit it and you just go through, go through them in order. And that's not very engaging. So it's kind of that tab target auto attack based combat, but in the sense that you are still reacting to what the enemy is doing, you're paying attention, situational awareness, and with a few maybe intense timed moments mixed in that maybe require a little bit of accuracy or precise timing, just to keep it a little bit more involved. So it's kind of that, again, this is at least what they're shooting for, is just kind of like not too slow, not too fast, somewhere kind of in between there. Kalix214 had a good question. He says, is this evaluation build basically what Project Fairtail was supposed to be? So I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I kind of glossed over that. Ben, at the very beginning of the stream, again, when he was referencing the producer's letter, he was talking about he mentioned that the evaluation build is complete. I think that's what he said, right? Said that the evaluation build is done. So let's just go back to the producer's letter. That way I'm not going off memory. This. Whoops. There we go. Anyway. Okay, so part where it talks about the evaluation build is here, where it says publishers and investors need to see what Pantheon is, how it plays, what it's all about. Several parties are interested in the concept, and now we need to show them that's reality. We are and always will be eternally grateful for the kindness and generosity of the community and our early investors in getting us this far, but we're going to need more resources to get Pantheon done, and sooner than our modest team can realistically do by themselves in a reasonable time frame. PA5 serves as a testing area for this evaluation build. Testers help in putting in the best possible experience in the hands of people who can accelerate development the most. So did he? Oh, I see. So if you haven't read this newsletter before, again, I have a 40-minute explanation that completely breaks this whole letter down. If you haven't seen that already, please go check it out, because I'm not going to repeat everything that I said here. But so the evaluation build, this doesn't really explain it as well as I thought it did, but it's basically the build that they will send to publishers and investors and stuff to give them just a little taste of what Pantheon is like and what they can expect. And so I don't think you can really say that it's 100% what Project Fairtale was supposed to be, because they're obviously not there, at least from an art standpoint, but it's certainly the bones. It's the important part. It's the proof of concept, so to speak, of Project Fairtale from a gameplay standpoint. You know, all the important pieces are there so that publishers can, even without all the graphics, can still get a point from get an idea of how the game plays, and if it's going to be viable, and does it run. That's probably where they'll start. So just to kind of show them that we have something here. Obviously it's not done yet, but that's where these investors come in, so that they can take it the rest of the way. So that's basically what the evaluation build is like, we have something packaged together that is representative in the most important ways of what Pantheon is going to be once they get those publisher investors on board. So I think that's kind of what they're getting at with that. So again, exciting stuff. And I like that part of it. I feel like I understand a little bit more, because again, something that I don't really talk about very often is that I also design board games in my spare time, and I have a game that board game that I've been working on for actually probably just like 5 years now. You want to talk about long development? Been working on that longer than they've been, at least longer than I've been aware of Pantheon. But so anyway, it's kind of similar in that sense. There's more similarities to developing there's more similarities between developing board games and video games than you would think. And who knows, maybe that's another another part of why I tend to be a little bit more understanding and patient when it comes to Pantheon's development, because even though I have never developed a MMO at all, I still have at least a fundamental understanding of the very iterative process of game design and development, just from my experience in board games. And even as far as when it comes to picking up a publisher for board games, very similar process, it sounds like. So this board game that I've been working on for a long time, is now at a point where I can start pitching it to publishers, and I have pitched it to publishers, because yes, I could self-publish it, but that would be an extremely time-consuming, very difficult process that I just don't, don't feel comfortable with, because I don't have any experience in the publishing aspect of it. Now, my brother did. My brother has published a board game, and he told me that it's like, if you're because he personally got into it because he enjoyed playing games, he enjoyed designing games, but when you get into the publishing aspect of it, it's a completely different game. There's all sorts of legal stuff and just technical stuff that you normally wouldn't even think about, and if that's just not like that, if that's just not where your head is, it can be kind of jarring. So anyway, I'm not as interested in the whole diving into the publishing aspect of it myself, again, because I don't have that, I just don't have that much time. Like, there's just other things going on. I just don't have the time to really dedicate the amount of effort that I would need to do that successfully. So, whether it be time or money or whatever the case, linking up with a publisher makes a lot of sense. And so that's why I decided to go with that route. When it comes to board games, there's pros and cons, because if you link up with a publisher, then you have to strike a deal with them, and they're obviously going to take a large portion of the profits if the game gets released and it starts making money. They're going to keep a large percentage of that revenue. But the other side of that is because they put in a lot of work to get it to the point where you handed it over to them to actually getting it on the shelves. And so just kind of at the cost of not needing to put all that time and effort in myself, they handle it much more professionally, much more quickly than I would be able to do on my own. So I get that aspect of it, and that whole process of pitching to publishers is super time consuming. And this whole year with the pandemic and everything totally threw me off that train a little bit, because a big part of pitching to board game publishers is conventions, which just didn't happen this year. I would have gone to Gen Con and all these sorts of other major board game conventions to actually meet with them face to face and get their hands on it, because you need to have an evaluation build of your board game, and that's a state where the art is not finalized. The publisher will, they'll handle all that. There's no point in putting in tons of effort into things that might end up needing to be tweaked later. And so it's all about prioritizing, okay, like what actually makes this game unique? That's what the publishers want to know. And so it's getting the game to a point where, yes, it might not be pretty, but publishers don't really need it to be pretty, because they're looking at it from a different angle than a player would be. Okay. And they need to see the skeleton. Is the skeleton there? Is it stable? Are the mechanics working? And that's pretty much the state where my board game is right now as well. Where you there's enough there to give them the impression of like you can start to see where it could be going. So you can see the potential. Yeah, it may be only 80 to 90% done, but a lot of the grunt work of getting the mechanics fleshed out and working and functional and fun, that's the key word, getting it to a point where it can be fun even without all the accoutrements and the fine little like finishing touches. If it's fun in that state, then that will get publishers' attention. If it's something that's like, oh, this is a mechanic maybe that I haven't seen in any other games, and that can be the edge that you need to really stand out. But still, it's a very time-consuming process. There's a lot of conversations, a lot of rejection. This in my experience so far, and from what I read, that it's very common when dealing with publishers. Again, like Ben Dean kind of talked about this in his interview with Nathan Napalm as well, where just because your evaluation build gets rejected by publishers or whatever the conversation you're having, if it doesn't result in a deal, that doesn't mean that the game is bad. Okay, that just means that publishers are looking for certain things that fit their portfolio. And again, I'm gonna talk about board game publishing specifically because that's what I understand the most. But you'll see that there's a lot of similarities with MMO publishing as well, where publishers they might have a specific style of game that they make, and if you might strike up a conversation with them, and it just might turn out that's like you might have a good game that would be a good fit for a different publisher, but not the one that you're talking to. And so you could just kind of have to like trudge through all the ones that aren't a fit until you find the one that is a fit. And like as an example, so my board game that I have designed is a 2-player game, only 2 players, and there are some publishers that they're just not interested in that. Like, yeah, I've gotten all these emails where like this is really cool, but it's just not what we're looking to do right now. If there's a publisher that has really made a name for themselves based on party games, like really light, just kind of fun party games that you can just play, with a group of friends that you have over while playing drinks, like, Cards Against Humanity type things. Like, there are publishers that only make those types of games. So when they see my game that is a 2-player, like kind of pretty heavy strategy game, they're just not going to be interested in. But that doesn't mean that I should take that personally and that my game's like never going to succeed. That's just not how it is. So it's definitely a long process of figuring out who's going to be a good fit for your game. And again, also, so it's so funny because, again, go watch that interview with Nathan Napalm with Ben Dean, the stories Ben Dean was telling about the conversations that they've had with some publishers. And I can relate to that a lot because I've had some conversations too where things are starting to go really well and the publisher might be interested in my game, but they are starting to talk about like, oh, well, we really think that this should change. Like, we feel like this might be a better fit for us and for our audience or for the current state of the market or whatever. But it's like the things that they're talking about changing are like pretty like fundamental aspects of the game where it's like, if you go changing that, it's like not the same game at all. And again, like I want the game that I made to be released as the game that I made. I'm not saying every single detail, you know, they can maybe change the names of certain things or whatever, pull out a few minor mechanics, add in a few minor mechanics, whatever. But there are, you have to draw a line somewhere. There has to be a point where you just say no, like that's not going to work out. No deal, because once you cross that line, it completely shifts the game into something that you didn't want it to be originally, and then it's like, what's the point? If that's the game that I wanted to be out there, I would have started completely differently. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I definitely can relate to some of the stories that the VR devs have been talking about finding a publisher, because it's tough. It's tough, but if they have a solid evaluation build, which it sounds like they do, that will go a long way. It's one thing to talk about a game, like, again, going back to board games for a second. You know, one of the first steps you do is you make a sell sheet, which is just one sheet of paper. It's got, like, you know, bullet points of what the core gameplay mechanics are that make your game unique, and maybe a brief description of it, and maybe some pictures of the board game and the pieces and stuff like that. So it's just very brief, very, very high level explanation, introduction to the game. And a lot of times publishers will be able to tell just by that whether or not something they're interested in. But if they are interested in it, then the next step is to actually send them a copy, like a hard copy of the prototype of that game, so that they can actually get their hands on it, so they can have a more thorough understanding of all the intricacies of the gameplay and how it works. So if you don't have that, it's impossible to really get somebody fully on board with your plans. Like, you can talk about it. Ideas are cheap. Even if you have even if you have some sketches and stuff like that, nothing beats being able to actually play it. Again, that's why I'm saying, it's like going to conventions and stuff and meeting face to face with them is just so important, when they can actually get their hands on it and you can go through a few turns and they can start to, oh, okay, I get it. You know, now of course with an MMO, you just send them a file. You don't need to like mail a actual like box of pieces, obviously. But it's the same kind of idea, where talking about it is one thing, but when you are actually playing it firsthand, your eyes open and you start to understand it and think about it more differently. So the evaluation build is a big deal. That's a long way. It's a long way to say that. So now that they have that, they can secure a publisher. Now the publishers can actually get their hands on it and understand it. Then that's a very good sign. There's much higher chance that they'll be able to secure one of those, and then it's going to be a rocket ride from there. If they get that sort of backing, we're all in for a crazy ride in the best way possible. And on that note, I think I'm going to wrap it up. Been live for quite a while now, but always fun, as always, hanging out with you, talking to you all. This is a great talk, great stream. So I'm going to head off for tonight. I wish you all well. We'll see you again the last Thursday of next month, if not before. Probably hope to see you all around the community and in Discord and on YouTube and such. But until then, guys, have a good night. Remember to always stay curious and adventure on.